You are listening to UPRN, United Public Radio Network, coming to you live on 105.3 right up to 107.7 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. UPRNTalkRadio.com.
Looking for stories that are fresh and new? Dark fantasy, humor, space exploration, time travel, cyberpunk, alternate history, and more. They're in the L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future anthology. From 24 award-winning authors and illustrators, plus art and writing tips and bonus stories. L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future. Buy your copy at galaxypress.com, Amazon, or wherever books are sold.
Alrighty. Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night. Coming at you 7:06 p.m. Central here in Florida. We got Bobby Dizzle sitting in with us from BobbyDizzle.com.
What's up? What's up?
And host of the Caffeinated Cryptid. That's a cool name. You finally changed it to that, didn't you?
Yep, I got Nishi. I went Nish.
Nice. I like it.
Just started owning it.
Jay has been working a lot, so he's usually the co-host. So I got Bobby and Wild Trees to sit in, or I'll ask them, and if they can, they can. If they can't, they can't. So hopefully, and Jay will be back next week for one show, and then Wild Trees at the end of the month. Jay just went through a crazy kidney stone thing too, which I just went through one not too long ago. It was a nightmare. It was like a horror movie. Thank God I survived it and it's over, but then he went through it. But he'll be back next week for a show. And tonight's guest, Samuel Chong. Great to have you here, Samuel. How are you?
Good, very good. Thanks for having me here.
Good. Can't wait.
Well, basically, the reason we do the show is because a long time ago, I had a lot of weird stuff happen to me after going through chemo for testicular cancer. And I got healed from that at 17. And then a few years later, my dad passed away. And I started having weird experiences, from seeing beings of light who may have been him trying to reach me from the other side, to seeing craft over every house I moved to that seemed like it was there for me or because of me. And I've also seen some strange beings. And from light beings, a lot of times I've seen those with my naked eye. And other times some stranger beings. There's been situations where I've had UFOs over me, and I don't know if I've ever been taken. If so, I don't remember anything. People want me to get hypnotized. I don't really want to, maybe, but I'd be careful with that kind of thing, who's doing it, you know. But that's why we do the show. And I started interviewing people like Stanton Friedman, Nick Pope, Lloyd Pye, Jim Mars, like all these old school UFO greats back in the day. And it was weird because I was having trouble getting interviews at one point, and I said a prayer to Great Spirit, or whatever you want to call it. And I had a UFO sighting of some red like energies in the air with multiple witnesses. And then somehow that got me on a radio show, and I told the story. And then the next thing you know, I was on the phone with people like Stanton Friedman and people who I'd seen in these documentaries and didn't think I'd ever interview them. Suddenly, it was like something helped me. Like, I don't know, I guess it was the aliens. I don't know. It seemed like the aliens hooked me up with some interviews, is what it seemed like. But I do think this is about raising consciousness. And that's what I learned from that. And I'm curious how you met the author of the book, and how did that first transpire into to you becoming the spokesman of all this?
Well, I was always very curious about the paranormal when I was young. I was thinking, if the ETs can come and visit us, they must have advanced knowledge and technologies. So if we just learn from the ET contactees the kind of messages that they receive from the ETs, then everything would be resolved or solved. For example, we would know who built the Great Pyramid of Egypt, for what purposes, what are ghosts, and what really happens in the Bermuda Triangle. and also the stories in the Bible as well. So I was always curious about what the ET contactees have to say about such things. So back in 2014, I found this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, that answers all the questions that I had in my mind about the paranormal, because it talks about the author's personal experiences of being taken away by this group of highly advanced, highly evolved ETs to their planet for 9 days and then came back. And he was informed about everything from where we all came from originally to the human energy field, and how we are, what ghosts are, and how we are able to evolve more spiritually as a society, to make our future a better world. So things like that. So this book is actually, to me, the Bible of everything related to the paranormal. So I decided to track the author down because the book is so incredible, and in the postscript, it says there are more incredible things that the author, Michel Desmarquet, was not allowed to write about. I was determined to find out what else he knew, but wasn't allowed to write in the book. So I found him in Vietnam after taking a trip there, and I didn't know his exact address. I just grabbed a photo that a tourist took when they accidentally met. And then I showed a photo of his bungalow to the taxi driver after landed in Phu Quoc Island, Vietnam. And the taxi driver took me to where he was living at that time.
Ooh.
You say it was in Vietnam?
Yes, he later
Okay.
moved to Vietnam, yes.
And what does he say about his abduction experience? Was it something that he was afraid of at first, or does he talk about what he went through? Does he have PTSD from it? I mean, or was he pretty open that it was a positive experience? Because I know people have a different variety of experiences with this stuff.
I mean, in the very beginning, because what he felt was love and compassion from the ETs, so he wasn't afraid of them. But he always thought he had a dream. It wasn't real for sure, and he always tried to kind of pinch himself and to see if there was pain, and if it were like a dream or not. So, but he had to be constantly reminded that it was not a dream; it was for real. But after he came back, he had a lot of psychological issues, and for example, depression, because he always wanted to go back. He was so disappointed at everything that happens on Earth. So he wanted them to take him away again.
Were there any repercussions? Like, he was gone. He wrote the note for 10 days. Like, honey, don't be worrying about me. I'll be gone for 10 days. I'll be right back. But was there any like did they send out like a search party? Almost an Amber Alert, but not for a grown man in Australia. But did they send out like a search party or missing persons report?
Well, because he left his wife a note that he would be gone for 10 days, and there's absolutely no need to worry about him. So his wife and his son took his words and didn't report to the police.
Wow.
I spoke to his son actually, and his son just said that they believed him and he would come back. So that's why they stayed calm.
Wow, that would never work with my wife. That's what I was thinking. Like that wouldn't work for 10 seconds. Like, what the hell do you mean to be gone for 10 days?
I mean,
just disappear.
Yeah, his wife still doesn't believe that he was taken away by this group of ETs. She thought that he had an affair, and she still doesn't believe him, even though he passed away already.
I mean, to be fair, he wasn't around women the whole time. To be fair.
Right.
Well, Bobby was saying something about the aliens, that they had like 2 different sex organs or something. I was like, I missed that. What is that about that? Is that true?
Yeah, that was
what am I talking about?
How'd you miss that part? That was a big deal. She took him in the meeting room. She took him behind in the interrogation room with a double-sided mirror, and look here.
So they're both sexes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're hermaphrodites. They have both male and female sexual organs. So they can reproduce themselves at will. They don't have to have a partner to have a child.
That's something for sure.
Let me ask you this: is I read most of the book, and I watched some videos about it after the fact, just to like close the fill in some gaps. What year was that book written?
It
Is it a
was
long time ago?
It happened in 1987, and he wrote the book, finished writing the book in 1989, and
Okay.
got it published in 1993.
It just seemed it had a lot of like political connotations that are recent. I'm like, this seems
Yes,
like it was written now for some. You know what I'm saying? You obviously read it, but it's just like, man, this stuff is very poignant to what's happening now. Like you could almost think it was written 3 years ago.
exactly.
Very topical. Especially when
Exactly.
she said, "Look, we're not men, we're not women." I'm like, "Whoa, what year was this written? 2020?"
And also with the what's going on politically here in the U.S., the
Mm-hmm.
two parties fighting, and the
Yep.
book tells a better political system, which resembles more like the republic system in ancient ancient times.
And that's what started the nuclear battle on the first planet,
Well,
the political diversity.
right. The on the first planet where we all came, the at least the yellows and the blacks came from, they had a lot of issues because people were more focused on the material wealth, and the politicians were playing the people
Mm-hmm.
and leading people into a downward spiral. So they had a lot of jealousy, and jealousy turned into hatred. So the blacks and the yellows had a war against each other, a nuclear war that almost wiped everyone out.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what happened. It's very similar to what's happening right now. People are
Oh yeah,
divided. Yeah.
it was very close. It was almost like a cautionary tale to that in that respect. And then they go to those other planets where they were testing out the almost like they would go to Chernobyl and test out the soil with the giant ants and the giant cockroaches.
Yes. And that planet was the planet where the current Polynesians, the ancestors of the
Mm-hmm.
Polynesians, lived in the past.
Yep,
Yeah.
they were all naked
Yes.
except for their sabers. Like, wow,
Yes.
that's very dangerous. Where do you keep your sheath?
Right.
Like,
And
where did they?
I know I saw some similarities with the material. I don't know if you're familiar with David Huggins, Love and Saucers. He's a painter that went through a lot of abduction experiences, a lot of them which were very sexual, and he paints them. But if you look up David Huggins, Love and Saucers, there's a whole documentary about it that you would, if you've never seen it, you should check it out. He paints what happened to him. And I see some similarities as far as, I don't know if it was the same aliens, obviously, but there's some definite, mirrors. And like recently, I've been watching that Secret of Skinwalker Ranch show. And when it comes to shows, I don't watch that many kind of shows on the paranormal. A lot of them are just crap. So I just don't spend my time doing it. But this one is a lot different because I do believe there's actual phenomenon going on there. And what's weird is how it mirrors some of the stuff that I've seen and also mirrors the footage released by the Pentagon of some of that phenomenon with the tic tac and everything. They actually brought the soldiers out from that tic tac incident, I guess from the Navy carrier to Skinwalker Ranch, and those guys have a car that helps them track phenomenon. And they're the actual soldiers that the video's from, that they're the ones who witnessed the phenomenon, and then the Pentagon released it. But those actual guys went out to Skinwalker Ranch and they had a UFO sighting, and one of them got sick, and that was the first time they had seen a UFO since that sighting, the Tic Tac sighting. And my point is, all this phenomenon that I'm seeing on the show kind of mirrors, because there's some other ranches that I've heard that are in Florida that they don't want to tell us the name because it'll hurt their business. But I've had people on the show, they have similar phenomenon, maybe not as hardcore as Skinwalker Ranch, but they have phenomenon going on there. And it seems like this phenomenon's happening at a lot of ranches. And they had Colonel John Alexander on, who went to that ranch with Robert Bigelow back in the day when Bigelow owned it with the government to study it. And this colonel is on this show saying, first off, he goes, "You're not in control here. It's in control here." And the show's crazy. Like, I believe there's a lot of truth to it, but it's almost too much. Like, every episode's a new weird thing that hypes up. Like, they got a signal there, and then they played the signal over a radio station and then had a sighting of 5 UFOs in the sky. Every show is just getting nuts. But what I'm talking about with mirrors is this abduction phenomenon that happened to the Arthur. I could see how, there are other people, and it mirrors, it's like a mirror to learn from with all these different cases. And so was it only 10 days that he went there? Did he ever go back, or that was the only time, 10 days?
That's the only time. He actually went there for 9 days exact. And but the most important thing that he brought a lot of messages back, information back, with specific verifiable facts that I later proved to be extremely accurate. For example, if you know that he wrote a book in 1989, and back then there was no internet, not in the US, not in Australia, not even in Australia, but he wrote about the tomb of Jesus Christ in Shingo Village, Japan. So there's a tomb of Jesus in Japan that people didn't know about. And now people, after learning about this book, began to do a lot of research. And they indeed can find and visit the tomb of Jesus in Japan. And that was actually mentioned in the book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, that not many people know about. And it explains everything, the stories in the Bible, how like Jesus was born and how born from Virgin Mary, and how the Star of Bethlehem was actually a UFO, like UAP, and how Christ was able to perform miracles only after the age of 30, but not before, because there are two separate beings. The one who was born out of Virgin Mary couldn't perform miracles, but the one who performed miracles was someone from Thiaoouba who took on the body of Jesus, made by the Thiaoubans. So during the 3-year period, there were two beings, one Jesus, one Christ. And the Christ was the one who actually preached about the universal love, brotherly love, and spirituality, and he was the one who died on the cross and resurrected 3 days after. So that's the Christ, the ET. And Jesus was the one who couldn't perform miracles, but who later went to India and died in Japan.
Very interesting, for sure. One of my big experiences has been beings of light. I saw a dog, but stop that. But I saw two beings of light leave a house down here in Florida one day. I was actually inside the house, and I was playing the Bible on a DVD on TV, one of those like Watchword or something. And I was just letting it play, and something goes, "Go outside." I went outside and look at the sky in my head, and it was like my own thought, but not. I went outside and turned towards my house and saw two shining beings of light leave my house as if they had been inside, flew straight through the roof somehow. I don't know how they do it, and flew right into the heavens, completely sober, nothing, naked eye. And I'll never forget it. But that's kind of why I don't talk. I was raised with a dad who was a preacher in Georgia in Christianity, and there's pros and cons to that for sure. But that was my proof and why I never talk smack about Jesus. Or I see all these people online that are just so negative about anything about Jesus. It's just kind of gross almost. But my point is, these beings of light are shining. They have a connection with the sun. So obviously they probably have a supervisor, which is probably like Jesus or something. But they were shining like the light, and just fascinating. But I didn't know, do they call the Jesus of Japan a certain name? What's the name? Does he have a certain name? I've heard Sananda and stuff like that, but is there a particular name for that Jesus?
Yeah, I think he was called Jesus for sure. And also in the village, in the village, people nowadays still sing a song that sounded like ancient Hebrew language. So they have a very unique custom that's very different from the rest of Japan. So this makes a lot of people wonder where they got at. And this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, explains everything perfectly. Um, so, and I think my personal opinion is that we should follow the teachings of Christ because it teaches us how to be more spiritual. But we don't need to follow a specific organized religion because they're acting as an intermediary, like an agent, when in fact we can connect to God, the source, directly without going through this organized religion. And because when we pray, when we meditate, we can connect to a higher self, which connects to God, the source. So because when God created every one of us, it inserted a tiny portion of itself to each one of our astral bodies. So we are part of God and God is part of us. So that's the message that I learned from the book.
I
Definitely.
think that's what they're trying to keep us from knowing too, with a lot of the media and stuff, that we're all beings of light. And they don't want us to know how powerful we are, which makes me mad when I get to thinking about it.
They keep us suppressed with violent stories and all kinds of stuff.
Right.
Well, I know one of the big things you always hear about alien beings trying to teach us, to warn us about, is atomic destruction.
Yeah.
And right now, with all the crazy Putin, Ukraine, and all that crazy, and that's been on our minds more than ever. And then we have that Oppenheimer movie coming out by Christopher Nolan, the guy that did the Heath Ledger Batman movie, and that's about the guy that invented the atom bomb. That's going to be like the summer movie coming out next to Barbie, which is kind of creepy. But what do they say about this, the atomicness? Why are they so worried? Will it hurt them? What are the dangers? I mean, obviously we know it's dangerous, but from a universal scale.
Well, you're on the right track, right point, because the universe is a big atom. So when the atomic bomb explodes here on Earth, it affects them as well. They can feel it. So when the bomb explodes here, it affects them negatively as well. But however, the discovery of the atoms or the invention of atomic bomb is a necessary step for human evolution, which all the civilizations in the universe would have to go through. It's just like the discovery of fire. It can do a lot of good and can do a lot of harm. It really is up to us how to use it correctly so that we don't destroy ourselves in the future. So similarly, like we can use the atomic um, technology, nuclear technology to our benefit. This is how uh, this is what we need to do. We need to know how to uh, evolve more spiritually so that we don't destroy ourselves in the future.
Yeah, it's definitely scary, all that stuff right now with dictators threatening to use their warheads, and it's just been crazy for sure, no doubt about it. And one of my experiences at one point, I had seen some reptilian type beings, and it was on Halloween night. And at first, when I saw them, I was very scared and thought they were fallen angels, and maybe they were. I don't really know, but that night they weren't physical. They were like a hologram or something, very strange looking, humanoid, but weird, very very weird. And almost the closest thing I've ever found to seeing something like that is pictures I've seen of like Mayan gods, like just the weird kind of like predator, like the alien with all the ornaments and stuff. But what was so weird that night is, I guess telepathically, they said things like, "We love you," and "write," and "sing," and "dance." It's like they were giving me a spiritual positive message while I'm freaking out thinking it's the devil. So that was kind of weird. But I know with these experiences in this book, what are some of the spiritual things that they taught about? And it seemed like there was a positivity to it, right? I mean, there's a positive like spiritual knowledge. It was kind of, it seems kind of self-helpy too on a lot of levels.
Yes, they actually led Michel Desmarquet, the author, to his past lives and explained to him the meaning of life and the purpose of us living here on Earth. The purpose is to learn spiritual lessons. We evolve through different reincarnations. So in our past lives, we learned different lessons, and now in the present lifetime, we learn another lesson, spiritual lessons. So when God created us, it really wanted to experience what we do in our lifetime through our physical bodies. So we send feedbacks to the source, to God, what we do, but we only send back the positive experiences. We don't send back the negative experiences. So if we really want to move up the ladder at a much faster pace, then we should really focus more on the positive spiritual lessons that we learn and experience. And the most important lesson is love, how to love each other. This is the gist of the spiritual lesson, and also it explains like different categories of planets that we can live on. For example, Earth is a category 1 planet, which is the lowest category, and people die in about a few decades or so. But when we move up the ladder, we can live on a category 3 planet, in which people can live much longer, maybe a few hundred years. And then when we reach level 9 or category 9, then we can live forever just like them. Um, so they, being highly evolved spiritually and highly advanced ETs, they don't age at all. They are very, very beautiful as described in the book. They're kind of like Nordic looking, gigantic ETs, 9 or 10 foot tall. They can regenerate their body organs or tissues, and they can perform all the miracles that's performed by Jesus Christ, like healing the diseased, walking on water, and levitate and materialize objects, communicate through telepathy, and also do a lot of different wonderful things. So this is the meaning of life: is to constantly evolve and move up the ladder.
It's Christ consciousness, right?
Yes.
You know what I've always wondered about, because I've heard this hypothesis and theory and story from a couple of different people, that some that communicate with the paranormal on the regular basis, and I've always wondered if they, like, does that mean that we still end with the heat death of the universe, or do our consciousness carry on even past that? Because even if you're a physical being on a planet, when the universe reaches its heat death, do we remain after that and start over at the next big bang? It's always been like, I'll start thinking about that and get anxiety and wake up in the middle of the night for no reason. Man, I know you probably don't. I mean, you obviously don't know, but I was wondering if it was in the book somewhere and I may have missed it.
Well, the universe
Something to
certainly
that effect.
was, yeah, the universe was certainly created by a big bang, and it talks about the whole creation of the universe, how
Yeah.
the Great Spirit created the stars, planets, plants, and animals and human beings. I wouldn't worry too much about the end of the creation, because too far away from us.
Yeah, that's a long way away. But if you make it and you are immortal, and your immortal self, I'm just wondering if it crosses into that plane too. Like maybe it just resets. And I mean, you obviously don't care if you're like that, but
I mean, Michel Desmarquet, he asked the ETs, the Thiaoubans, um, like who created the Great Spirit, the creator of the universe. He was told that they didn't know either. They didn't know who created the Great Spirit. So there's a limitation to the knowledge, the kind of knowledge that they have as well.
I'm asking a question of the back of the universe book, and I'm up here. I'm not even past the table of contents consciously.
You're
I'm
talking
still
about
in the dead.
the Big Bang, though, right? Happening like at the end, the heat. Is that what you mean, like a Big Bang event?
No, like the universe is going to end in a heat death. Like that's scientifically what it's going to happen. Like
It's already happening here in Florida.
Yeah, I'm in Alabama and it's definitely heat down. But like the big thing with encryption algorithms, like keeping things secret with how cracking encryption, some of them, the length of time it would take you to crack the algorithm. The thing they say is until the heat death of the universe. So that's, and I always thought, if you're immortal and that happens, are you still immortal or do you reset with everything? Like, and you're just gone. Or
Probably
I guess if you're immortal, your consciousness keeps going.
Yeah, infinite. I've always worried, what if an atom bomb like kills your soul too? Like, isn't there things in the Bible about things that can also like get your soul? Like, that's a worry of mine. That's something that creeps me out. Hopefully that's not the case. Her soul's so strong it wouldn't affect it, but it is an atom bomb. You know, it might work. That might be why the aliens don't like it so much. You know, so there's a lot of questions that should be in horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
But so
I think they don't like it because it goes through the dimensions. The damage is multidimensional.
Yeah, definitely. I've been watching a lot of Star Trek lately, Strange New Worlds, and you know, a bunch of I watched all of Picard. Definitely gets you in a good, positive mindset about that kind of stuff. It feels good to watch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you learn a lot from it. So, Samuel, what? I mean, you've always been interested in the paranormal, but have you had anything that's happened personally since you've been on this journey, or anything that may pertain to the Arthur visiting, or signs, or anything weird through all this, like personal?
You know, I don't have any personal experiences in terms of the paranormal. But things fall into place because, you know, I really want to spread the messages,
Mm-hmm.
and people help me out.
Synchronicity.
Yeah.
That's a phenomenon in itself. That's definitely, you know, that could be considered an experience as well. Synchronistic kind of things.
Like
That's definitely a paranormal experience.
Yes.
I consider my experience with angel numbers to be a paranormal experience because they're so freaking reliable for me. I'm like, well, something's happening. I don't know what it is, but it's there. It's pretty reliable.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, Mark Eddy helped me out and by connecting me to a lot of different hosts and different shows, and also Bruce Solheim and also a few others like Michael J.S. Carter, and I think people help me out, and I think if I really want to, and I just pray and meditate, and things fall into place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Michael was just on our show as a good one for sure. So where were you born? You're Chinese? Is that or okay? Were you born there?
Chinese. I was born in Beijing, China, the capital.
So how about in the book? In the book, they call the yellow people the Chinese race. I'm like, that's not a race. That's just a place. I was like, wait a minute. When was this written? That's one of the reasons I want to know when it was written as well. Who wrote this? Is it my grandfather that wrote this? That's something he would say.
Right. I mean, we have to understand that Michel Desmarquet was a landscaper, like a farmer, and he didn't have a lot of education. He wrote a book in French originally, so the language that he
translated.
Yes.
Yeah.
The language he used is not politically correct to our.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was translated from something because some of the stuff, like the way the sentences were formed, like that doesn't make. Like you can tell somebody like didn't speak 100% English. Of course, he said he was French a lot. He made a point to say he was French a lot, so it made sense that it might have been translated.
Right. They communicated in French telepathically, and also he wrote it in French and had a translator, K. Smith, and translated into English. It's a very good translation, though.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really easy read. Aside from under just a handful of sentences were kind of backwards, but that was it. Let me ask you this. Sorry, go ahead, Jeffrey. My question is.
I was going to ask. Saying, go ahead.
I was going to ask, why do you think they didn't tell him the speed of light they were going? That bothered the shit out of me. Like, why didn't you tell us that? Like, why was that classified on all the things? You showed us God, but we can't know how fast we're going.
They don't want humans to steal it.
He said, they showed him literal God, but they wouldn't tell him how fast they were going. I'm like, okay.
This is a very good question. I mean, I think if we knew the speed of light, I mean the speed that they were traveling, then we would have been able to reverse engineer their technology. But we are not ready spiritually to do that. So if we learn their technology, we would probably destroy ourselves or something like that.
We definitely use it as a weapon by now.
Yeah.
At first, before we started using it to commercial flight,
Yeah.
go into Alpha Centauri for a weekend trip.
Yeah.
Proxima Centauri.
So,
just
so,
heading-
so I'm curious, Samuel. What do they say about life on Mars? And I mean, what are some of the things they told us about some other planets and life?
Yes, there were lives on Mars about 1.35 million years ago. There were
Mhm.
people on Mars, people who were not really tall, and people who were highly spiritual but didn't have a lot of technologies. And the resources in Mars were scarce. But the most important thing that Mars was cooling down. By that, he meant that the core of Mars was cooling down. So when the core of a planet cools down, it it no longer has the electromagnetic forces that could capture the atmosphere of the planet. So when that happens, Mars became a desert planet,
Mhm.
and people and animals and plants could no longer survive there. So Mars is already a dead planet, but it did have life forms on Mars.
Mhm. It had little bushes, and
Yes.
there were little short goats and
Yeah.
snakes. Mars snakes.
Where do you
Yeah.
see that? Like I see some of those videos online, and they're like handgun on Mars, car on Mars. Some of them were pretty weird. Like,
That's what I can't think of what the aliens. I mean, that's what they called them. That's what there was on Mars. There was a midget goat, they called it, and a Mars snake that was highly venomous,
yeah,
and
I
the
know.
people were really short.
I've seen some weird things about some of the space pictures that they take of Mars. Like they'll say that the footage is actually from like Denmark or something, and that might be some deception with some of that stuff. I'm talking about NASA stuff and things like
Yeah.
that. Like we could go down that rabbit hole, but probably best not to. But have they said anything about any other planets in our sector that had life or anything else? Like what about Saturn, my Capricorn planet? Yeah, baby, what's up, Saturn? Representing.
It's a
Yeah,
gas giant.
they said anything about any of the other planets having life or anything in our sector?
It doesn't
No.
really say anything of life forms in our solar system, but there are other ETs on different planets in our Milky Way galaxy for sure. Because when Michel Desmarquet, the day before he was about to depart, they showed him 147 different corpses floating in a golden doko. A doko is a kind of like a half egg shaped structure that contained the corpse of people who were living on different planets, who made the significant contributions to the spiritual developments of the different planets. So there are at least 147 different ET species or races in our Milky Way galaxy. I would say there are maybe possibly like a few hundreds of them because Thiaoouba is just one of the three Category 9 planets in our Milky Way galaxy. If you time, if you multiply 147 by 3, then you're going to get about close to 500 different ET species in our Milky Way galaxy.
Teeming with life. And it's fascinating when we talk about these cases. I'm familiar with Whitley Strieber, and there's a bunch of different ones that are in the limelight, so to speak. Betty and Barney Hill, and things like that. And in one of my experiences, I saw some small hooded beings in the woods with a friend, and they very small and seemed like they had cloaks on. You couldn't see their faces. And there was a black box, and a cat jumped towards them, and they vanished. I think, have they said anything about? I know you talk about parallel universe on the Earth and things like that. But have they said anything about beings living here with us? It kind of seems like there's something that lives here with us. Does that ever come up or anything like that?
Yes, indeed, there are ETs that live among us. However, they don't intervene or interfere with our activities. They just, at most, come here to observe us. Most other ETs, they don't intervene or interfere, except for the Thiaoubans, who had been watching us throughout history, throughout ancient past. Um, they were responsible for the destructions of the two cities, Sodom and Gomorrah. They were responsible for leading Moses out of Egypt, parting the Sea of Reeds, not the Red Sea, but the Sea of Reeds, and handing out or giving out manas to the ancient Hebrews. And they were responsible for the birth of Jesus and the appearance of Christ. They were also responsible for preventing Germany from being the first country to develop the atomic bomb. So they were helping us and helping the people that focus more on individual liberties.
Well, you have Captain Robert Salas, who's been on my show. He wrote a book about those UFOs shutting down the missile silos at an American base, and he's still enlisted. It's always fascinating how some of these military people, I mean, he's still enlisted, and he put this book out and does radio shows about a UFO coming to his base and shutting down the silos. So, I mean, we've definitely got some weird evidence that they don't want us messing with that stuff for sure. So it makes sense that they're protecting us from that for sure, no doubt about it. And there's been a lot of base cases. There's Fort Benning, something happened there with a friend of mine, John Vasquez. He's passed now. It's interesting how they try to protect us on different levels. Well, what from the book haven't we talked about that you particularly would like to talk about? What comes to mind?
Ghosts and also the human energy field auras, because I know people who can see ghosts, and I like to shed some light what ghosts are, and also I also want to see if you can see auras and the colors that people emit from their physical bodies or chakras. So ghosts, I think ghosts are something that's really interesting and special. Is that we have our physical bodies, but we also have our astral bodies. So when a person dies, for example, a guy dies, and his astral body leaves his physical body, and the astral body is composed of electrons, and 81% of the electrons of the astral body would go back to the higher self after 3 days. So this is why Jesus Christ resurrected after 3 days, and this is why the ancient Tibetans and the Tibetan culture, the corpse of the dead are not to be touched for 3 days. So that's the 81% of electrons of the astral body. The other 19% of the electrons remain in nature until they're recycled by nature or when a person reincarnates again. So what people see ghosts are actually the remaining 19% of the electrons of the astral body of the person who just passed away, who passed away. And because of static forces of the electrons, the shape or the appearance of the electrons resemble the person who passed away. And because electrons have memories, ghosts frequently haunt the places that they loved or hated. And there's nothing to be afraid of ghosts. And a lot of Chinese people, they're afraid of ghosts, but they're just part of nature, and it's just something that people should know about.
Yeah, there was some story about some monks who passed away and the bodies, like, I guess, kept, they stayed in pretty good condition considering, but I know they said they did some kind of something so they could go to their light bodies or something. I've seen an article about it somewhere, but the light body thing interests me heavily because I've seen beings, light bodies. Well, I've seen humanoid glowing beings that would be considered a light body, or what shamans call luminous beings of light. and I've seen them many times with my naked eye from up in the heavens, like almost like a star, but it ain't a star. It's a person, like a light body person. And then I've seen the two leave my house. So I think there's definitely a connection with us in that. And it's interesting what you say about the ghost, the residue, so to speak. That makes sense. So I definitely don't disagree with it. And I've seen some ghosts before. There was one time I saw some Native American type ghosts that seemed like they were like dressed in native attire and things like that. When I went through chemo, I had a native visit me in my sleep, and he like did water like a shaman, like spit something out like water, like a ceremony over me in my dream state. So there's definitely something to the light being thing, no doubt about it. I guess it's us on a higher frequency, and then somehow these are the cocoons.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Ron Howard movie, Cocoon 1 and 2. Those are good. But what else? It's a quantum level, right? There's so much going on quantum levels with all of
Yeah,
this.
yeah. On quantum levels, I think the universe is holographic because everything is connected, and it's like a holographic film that we live in, um, and the connection of consciousness um, is instantaneous, and they're kind of like without any speed. They're the fastest speed that we can imagine because everything like um, is the information can be transferred instantaneously. I also want to ask you about the human energy field, the auras. If you can see ghosts, have you ever noticed any colors being emitted by certain people or the
I
auras? What
haven't.
you see?
I've heard other people that said they could see them, but I've never seen them.
What about you,
Like
Jeff?
blue and
I've
yellow and
noticed
pink.
it. I've noticed it, and I've had people that have noticed it from me, like seeing weird colors around me and stuff. It's not something that happens all the time, but most of the time it seems clear, like a clear, or sometimes I can notice a light, like a light aura kind of thing, but it's not something that happens a lot, but I have seen it around certain people, yeah.
I mean, if any of your audience can see the colors of auras, please contact me because I'm doing a research because I really want to develop an aura camera. And the reason is that the auras, the colors, can predict a lot of things. For example, if someone's liver area shows up to be like a grayish color, that means the liver sooner or later will have physical illness. So it's like a diagnostic tool and can predict physiological changes and physical illness before before that happens. It can also tell if a person is lying or not. If yeah, for example, if the two politicians are debating each other on stage, running for re-elections, we can if we can see the auras, we
That would
know.
be insane. Flip it to the Aura channel, ESPN Aura. Watch things with the Aura on it.
Yeah,
I know they have like cameras that take pictures that pick it up, don't they? I mean, like they've had that for a while, haven't they? Auras, like cameras that can do it somehow.
right. They are they're on the market, but according to my friends who can see auras, they are not really accurate because what they do is that they sense the energy from the person's hand. So a person would have to put his or her hand on the sensor in order for the colors to appear on the shoulder and on the head. What
Yes.
I'm trying to do is to invent something that's functioning as a real camera, in which the person wouldn't have to put a hand on a sensor.
Cool. There's definitely something to it, no doubt. And the chakras and the energy centers, and I've read a lot of books on light worker stuff, and some of it's really good. Some of it's kind of too much for me, but there's truth to it. And the big opener is seeing those beings of light. I mean, you see something like that, something that even when I talk about it, uh, I get chills about it a lot of times. I had a Sunbow True Brother on. He's up in Quebec and does a lot of Bigfoot shaman type situations. but he said he saw a being of light, and he said it had no facial features, and that's how mine were. And when he said that, goosebumps all over my body. Like they didn't have a face like you and me, or a mustache or whatever. It was just kind of like a Morpheus, light. It was definitely strange, but interesting about auras and life after death. So, is that something that's come? Did they talk about life after death and the death in the book a lot? Is that something you've studied as well? Is that in the book?
Yes, I mean, they actually took Michel Desmarquet to his past lives, showing him who he was, who he like in his past lives. For example, he was a mining worker in Germany. He was a goldsmith in Japan. He was a beggar in Africa, and he was also like a queen in a country on different planet. So he lived through his 80 past lives, and so he experienced a lot. And life is just like a wheel. What goes up has to come down. So we have to take on different roles in different lifetimes to learn different lessons. So a lot of people envy about the super wealthy and the super rich, but I think there's nothing to be envied about because they have greater challenges or temptations. And they cannot take away their wealth or material objects when they die. But what's most important is how we live spiritually in our lifetimes.
Definitely. And that's how I've kind of seen some of those beings of light, like in the heavens. And I do think there's kind of like a quantum realm around the earth, and maybe that's where we go when we die. It's kind of like a staging area, and then you kind of like maybe a life review and get ushered somewhere else. And that's what my experience has been like, seeing like it's almost like looking into a Sims game in the heavens. Like there's just all these different quantum realms around the earth, and you can just see those beings of light in it. And maybe that's where we go when we sleep too, and project that there, that part of us. And it's like all around the earth, like at night. I've seen it. Like I've looked up there and seen it. It's like something showing me, like God putting his fingertips on you. It doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes I'm like, where is it? It's not there. But sometimes it is. And it's I guess it's what shamans call seeing. And it's been a while since, I've had some things happen that have been I was at a house, my fiance's house, Christina, and we had a lot of weird things happen there. A glass blew up when she was near it. That may have been from her emotions. That something hit her bed late at night, and I got up with a flashlight thinking something fell off a shelf. Nothing fell off the shelf. And at the same time we were in the RV, something hit it. And it was almost like a slap. And what was weird recently on that Skinwalker Ranch show, something did the same thing to his RV. And I just saw that episode a few days ago, and it reminded me of the times it happened to us. I don't know if it's Bigfoot slapping us or what it is.
Bigfoot slaps RVs. That's their thing.
I know. I heard that. Maybe so.
You're speaking of the parallel, or not the parallel, but like limbo / purgatory, in that opening scene of the book where they go into the to the purgatory limbo and the cavemen show up.
Yeah.
She just starts mowing them down with telepathy. Like, did you just kill those cavemen? I would watch a Saturday Night Live skit of that. I was laughing. I'm like, wait, what? I forgot that it clearly stated this isn't science fiction. I'm like, that's the funniest thing. I would read it. Like, did you just smoke those cavemen? Like, yeah, they were going to die anyway.
That's like a Star Trek episode.
Yeah, it was funny because she's like explaining to him that people get basically explaining David Pilates right there, that it's the same thing. People fall in, they fall out. But those guys have been there for 30,000 years. This band of cavemen, they don't age. They can only eat. They don't drink. They don't starve to death. They're just wandering around, and they just came after him. Michelle and the Thal, and she looks at him and does this and just kills them all with telepathy. Like, wow, that just happened.
Were they Bigfoot or cavemen?
No, they're cavemen. They had clubs and everything.
I kind of think that the Bigfoot are probably the cavemen from parallel universe, and they come and out of parallel universe, and that's why they suddenly appear and suddenly disappear.
And
Yeah.
if that is an accurate depiction of what happens, and say Bigfoot may be something like Thal and can utilize that, and that's how they can pop in and out.
Yeah.
Because I get really woo woo when it comes to Bigfoot just because my imagination just likes it. It's like a therapy for me. But I think that they can pop in and out, and I think that there's a reason there's no bodies. There's a reason we don't find babies or can set up a trail cam. Like they can come in and out. And if this book is any indication, if it can actually be used as a reference, which why not? I think that little universe they went into before they went into the Stargate, back onto the ship, when they floated up to the ship, I think that is probably explaining where Bigfoot goes when you don't see him, because it's going to be that quick.
Right.
And maybe animals can use it, kind of like the what's the new Star Wars canon where there's whales in the warp drive. There's whales that can go the speed of light, like similar to that. Like Bigfoot can use that.
Well, I know Sunbow True Brothers said that with aliens, that there were different factions. Like you may have some here that are light in Christ. You may have some that have gone rogue AI, cyborg, that aren't that friendly. Like he's saying, there's different, sects and different types. And same thing with Bigfoot. Some may be like weird cavemen. Some may be like Star Wars Chewbacca Wookiees that are more sophisticated. And I mean, sometimes people see them with aliens, so they may help certain aliens or whatever. But it's fascinating. The David Pilates stuff's very fascinating. I've interviewed him several times, and I saw Missing 411 UFO Connection not too long ago. That was really good. He used to never bring up paranormal stuff as a reason for this activity with people missing, but now he's kind of embracing it a lot.
20 years ago, you couldn't talk about it. Now you can.
Yeah. So now he's pretty much saying it's part of it. So that's there may be aliens that take people and may not be positive, but there may be aliens that do, and it is obviously with the different cases that we hear about with this one and Whitley Strieber and things like that. And I mean, there's some that say that there may be aliens out there that eat us. I don't know if that's true. I hope not. Soup.
I think actually some people talk about ET or alien invasion. I don't think that's going to happen because we were warned off from the moon. We went to the moon, but we were warned off from the moon. So this is why we haven't been there in the last 50 years or so, even though the cost is much lower and we have far more advanced technologies than 50 years ago. We were warned off from the moon because we are not ready. We were not ready. We are not ready. Similarly, they would prevent other ETs that are not ready to visit us or to invade us. So I think it goes both ways.
Was that in the book?
Well, Michel Desmarquet gave a public lecture, and so that he talked about it.
Okay. I was like, well, I've heard that before. It's not just, I've heard it from a couple different psychics and stuff, and also from Preston Dennett and Dolly Safran. But yeah, I thought I missed that part in the book because that would have been definitely.
Right.
I was in my food coma post barbecue sandwich when I was reading it, so I was just. So I'm like, did I miss that or something?
I mean,
yeah. Go ahead.
It talks about the ET bases on the far side of the moon,
Yeah.
the alien bases, artificial bases, and it explains who built it, when, and for what purposes. It turned out that the people from Arima X3, another planet, were having overpopulation issue, so they wanted to migrate some of their people to Earth, but they encountered some kind of a resistance from the Chinese, so they retracted and built ET or artificial bases on the far side of the moon in order to use them as a transfer station, so they can transfer their people, migrate their people face by face. About 250,000 years ago or so.
Definitely fascinating. I remember Nancy Red Star. She's Cherokee. and she has a book or something, I think Star People, or about Star People tribes and things like that. She told a story about there being a calamity on one of the continents here on the Earth, like ecological, and the beings came and moved them to another one. And that's part of their native, stories and everything. So it's fascinating how these beings save our ass so many times. Well, I mean, without them, we'd probably be extinct.
It was a volcano. It was a volcano that was going off. It was going to kill them all. And they picked them up in South America, possibly Peru.
There's probably other ones too, like that. I mean, there's
like Lemuria and Atlantis.
Mm-hmm. Prime example.
I swear I posted a YouTube video today from a Spanish channel, and I try to be not believe everything I see, but it is the weirdest video I've ever seen, and I swear it says it's a giant doing something, and it really looks like a big giant man riding some kind of like thing in the sky. I'll have to post it in the chat, but it's really weird. Like, it's just one of those where like, this is weird. Like, there's some weird footage out there. One of my favorite documentaries ever is Dan Aykroyd, the guy from Ghostbusters. Mm-hmm. David Sarita interviews him, and you can find it on YouTube. It's called Dan Aykroyd UFOs Unplugged, and it's him smoking a cigar talking about UFO stuff that's happened to him, and it's got footage. It's really good. But that's what I like. I like stuff that has really good footage that just makes you go, whoa, wow. And there's a lot of it lately. Even on Skinwalker Ranch, that show, there's a lot. And what's interesting about that show, they just did a spinoff called Beyond. They're going to other ranches that are having similar phenomenon. And like I said, there's ranches in Florida that I've heard guests talk about that are having phenomenon, but they don't want the public to know the name of the ranch because it'll hurt business. So it's just creepy to think that this is maybe happening at so many different ranches. I'm always wondering about the cattle mutilation. I don't know if that comes up in the book or anything, but have you ever thought about that, Samuel? What's really going on with the cattle mutilation type stuff?
The book doesn't mention anything like that, but I have my personal opinion and hypothesis is that I think they're probably not done by the ETs, but by us, the government secret programs. They're probably doing some kind of experiment or something like that, and they need the tissues or body parts from the cows to do that. It's just a strange hypothesis. I don't know whether it's true or not.
I wouldn't rule it out. I certainly wouldn't rule it out.
That's what Preston said.
Would not rule it out. That's like with Skinwalker Ranch. There's so many government officials involved with this place. I think there's phenomenon happening, but you're also like, is the government using this to, stage something for the public, like a psyop, or it's gotten really weird on that show. They flew out the governor of Utah there. They brought in Colonel John Alexander. They're bringing in the TikTok soldiers, and people are getting sick on the show and having to be ushered off. People have got radiation burns there. So I think there's real stuff going there. But when you have so many government personnel showing up, you start to get paranoid. And that's the way I feel about it. Is it?
And Travis won't let his daughter go.
And we had Augie Nost on about Project Bluebeam. He thinks they're about to do a fake alien invasion. Are they using that show to do that? There's so many ways to go with it. We've heard conspiracies about fake alien invasions and stuff with holograms, and them trying to like put a hologram of Jesus over Cuba to cause disrest. They'll think it's the second coming. So, I wouldn't rule anything out at this point. That's kind of the way I see it. You can't rule anything out. And then they always say, I don't know, because I don't. But yeah, it's definitely crazy times with it. I mean, I try not to watch the news, but my mom has it on CNN or NBC or whatever. But every time I walk by, not every time, but they're always talking about UFOs now on there. It's creepy. With that Las Vegas thing that just happened, that we talked about that was really weird. They claimed they saw aliens in their backyard. The police seemed freaked out and left cameras there to watch for later to make sure the aliens didn't come back or weirdo people. But it's been crazy on a crazy scale with UFO disclosure. I mean, no doubt about it. Just in the news and in the public eye and everything. Been a
Yeah,
lot going on,
yeah.
for sure.
And I think we do have the technologies of holographic simulation. So I think people need to be aware of it.
Yep. I don't trust
Yeah.
anything anymore. Honestly, deep fake is too good. AI is too good.
Well, that's like with the Phoenix Lights case in America, the Stevensville, Texas case was all this big giant UFO over a city, and everyone saw it. And I know now they could do stuff with, like I was just talking to Joe, they could do things with lasers, Joe Montalto, and all kinds of stuff with this. So who's to say that's not a government psyop when they, why would an alien just stop over a city and not communicate unless it's trying to and we just don't know it? But I mean, you can't rule out government with all this stuff. There's just, you got to have discernment.
Yeah,
There's
definitely.
so much with it. And so, is this the only book he wrote, or did he write another book?
Well, he wrote two other books, but are fictions. This book he insisted to be published as a nonfiction. That's why he kind of wasn't able to publish it for about 3 or 4 years. The other books he wrote are not nearly as good as this one. This is probably the gem.
There's a dude on the reviews that says the book stopped him from killing himself. So you can't get a better blurb than that. Is it the spiritual knowledge that helps people, and just to give kind of a more of a spiritual approach? What are some of the things? Let's say, for instance, this person. What do you think in the book stopped him from doing that? The spiritual knowledge.
Yes, spiritual knowledge that life is a learning process. When you are born to this world, you before that happens, you actually prebuild your life, and then you agree to be born into this parents, and then to live a life of different specific challenges, and then your memory is wiped out. So like you have to pass through what they would call the river of oblivion, forgetting the life preview memories. So and then you take on the challenges in your lifetime, and then you respond to them, and then you learn different spiritual lessons. If you end your lifetime much earlier than you're supposed to, then it would be equivalent to a breach of contract, because you signed a contract to be born here and to learn different lessons. And then if you kind of commit suicide, then you breach the contract. Then you have to learn the lessons that you didn't learn. You have to finish learning the lessons that you didn't learn. It'll be like a waste of time.
Scott, I'm reading through the blurbs here. Bernie Siegel, Phyllis Galdi, Fake Magazine. You got some good blurbage for sure. I know Gian Quasar. It says that the book gives details on what a parallel universe is like from within. Is there anything else you could tell us more about that? What parallel universes and things like that are according to the book?
Yes, according to the book, there are different locations on Earth that are actually the portals or warps or entry points into parallel universes. And places like planes or ships or people near that area um, get stuck into the parallel universe. And inside the parallel universe, time stops and people don't feel any hunger, pain, or thirst. And they're stuck there forever unless they know how to get out. So it's like a perjury, and like because time stops, they don't age at all. And so it's just like a place in which you would see people from different ages, like the savages, or people from medieval times, or modern people. And I think David Pilates would agree that the parallel universe theory would explain some of his missing 411 cases.
Yes, I definitely think that for sure. And that UFO connection, that newest one he did, there's a story in there about a guy that got abducted, and he passed lie detector test and everything. And they said they put him. He said they put him back because he had a vasectomy. And then they also said that the other people, some of the other people that supposedly may have been taken by a UFO, that they didn't have anything wrong with them reproductive wise, and that they never found them again. And a lot of them were of, I think, Germanic descent or something like that. But it's definitely fascinating for sure, and definitely creepy. And you have to wonder, some of these people that get taken, is it obviously at first against their will, and are there some of them just agree to it, and or are they taken and want to come back, or it just gets, there's so many different layers to it to think about for sure. Me personally, I don't know if I've ever been taken, but I wonder it, because I've had UFOs over me to where it seemed like they were there for the house and me. And I've even had friends say, Jeffrey, you're attracting it here for some reason. But I don't know if I've ever been taken. If so, I don't remember any of it. I had a weird thing happen recently. We had to drive to the Panama City, Florida airport, and on the way home, I remember being with a Native American friend of mine and some other friends in a truck and seeing a big UFO in the sky, like a spear over the truck. And then as I was driving, I started seeing that truck inside a UFO, and we seemed like we were passed out and there were grays around. And I actually got kind of sick and went off the road a little bit. But my problem is, I don't know if it's my imagination or if that really happened. That's a lot to swallow. Maybe it did. Maybe they sucked our car up and, did weird stuff to us. I don't know. But that's the kind of the point. It's hard to differentiate if it's happening in your sleep, or, astrally, or if you're actually physically there and it's happening to you. I just know I've seen enough weird stuff. Something's happening, because that's all I know. And I think,
didn't you say you lost time?
Lost time?
Whenever that happened with the car. You told me that story before.
There was weird feelings for sure. But I was still at the point to where I didn't know if it was really happened. I know I really saw the UFO, but I don't know if aliens really sucked me into a UFO with all my friends in the truck and took the whole truck into a UFO. But I saw it in my mind. It's just, isn't that something he struggled with, trying to figure out if it was in his sleep or really happened? I mean, that's a big part of it, trying to figure that out.
Yeah, he was. I mean, Michel Desmarquet was always wondering whether it was a dream for him or not. So he was always questioning himself. But I want to ask you about your experiences. Is that according to Dr. Stephen Greer, there are two types of ET crafts. One from the real ETs, real aliens, and the other is the reverse engineered spacecrafts by the military, the government. So the ones that you saw, do you think those are from the real ETs or from the black operations of the government?
I don't really know. I mean, I had one weird experience at one point in Georgia where I'd been having some UFO sightings, and I saw, me and a friend, this was in my early 20s, I'm like 48 now, but we saw a silent helicopter over the house that seemed like it had no blades or rotors, almost like and you could see the cockpit and what appeared to be like a soldier in it, like in an Air Force thing, like you'd see on Top Gun or something. And he was inside of it, and it made no noise. And he waved at us mockingly, and it just went away. It was like he dropped down, showed himself, and went away. And that, he didn't seem like an alien to me, but the technology seemed really weird. But none of them ever came to me face to face and talked to me. But that I will never forget. It was almost like those UFO sightings were happening, and the government sent out some kind of agency to investigate. And one of those craft of them appeared over the house. and I'll never forget it. That's for sure. It's definitely. I've had some. The other weird thing I had happen at one point, and I've told this story, is at one point I was going to turn off a landline on a phone here in Florida at a different house, and I set it over the phone, and then mysteriously a $2,000 credit appeared on that phone to keep it on. And I actually asked them to send that to me as a check in the mail, and they did. And I used it to pay land taxes and went on a shopping spree and turned the phone off anyway. But it was like some kind of agency put that credit on my phone to keep it on, to keep listening. And the only thing I was doing weird was a radio show about this kind of stuff. So yeah, there's weird government stuff, no doubt about it. But none of them have ever come to me face to face. I hope not. That'd scare the crap out of me. But there have been the weird thing over the house and that credit. That's definitely, the government's knee deep in this too much, I'm sure. That's what concerns me about Skinwalker Ranch.
I think you'll be a very good witness to the black operations of the government.
Yeah, that stuff definitely goes on.
Yeah.
But I've heard stories of, there's a friend of mine, Jerry Avalos, that worked for Project Camelot production for many years. He claims they came and took him and kidnapped him and interrogated him and then brought him back home. God, that would scare me to death. But I believe this stuff goes on, no doubt. And that's the big thing with all this UFO phenomenon, is differentiating what's that and what's alien. Like, it's so confusing with drones and black ops programs and blah, 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 and crazy. It gets too much. I guess that's the way they like it, probably, too, that we're so flooded with information about it, we can't even figure it out,
Yeah.
on so many different levels.
This is very interesting because I've heard both sides of the story. If you saw the soldier or maybe the military person waving at you, that's something that indicates that it's probably from us.
Yeah.
They're never going to believe you, and they fly away.
Yeah. So when it comes to China, or do you still go there, or you just don't go there? I mean, how is this with what you do? In their perspective, they seem a lot more open with UFO stuff too, aren't they? Or are they not?
Well, the government, the media, the government, they are not really open to the UFO stuff. I try to bring the messages to the people in China, but only privately, not through official media channels. The book Thiaoouba Prophecy was published as a science fiction in China because of the media control over this kind of information.
Yeah.
But in Taiwan, it's a different story. It's a free country, so it's published as a nonfiction there.
Cool. So, who are some other authors in this subject that you've read that you've liked, or do you read other people that what kind of other books do you get into with some of this stuff?
I read books written by Dr. Stephen Greer, and I think he's credible. And I think I haven't read other books because compared to this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, which unveils all the mysteries of the paranormal, I think the other books are, probably good, but not
As in depth.
Yeah, not as in depth.
Yeah, Stephen Greer.
You seen Stephen Greer on Rogan?
I don't know if he's on Rogan or not.
He was on there a long time ago. He was, real early. That's how I got introduced to him. And he was doing his C5 CE5s off the coast there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Close Encounters. Yeah, and Dan Aykroyd was on there too. Talking about the same thing.
I saw that Dan Aykroyd one. That was really good. I know one of the things that gave me the creeps about Stephen Greer, some of the stuff he had was, I saw those little beings in the woods with a black box that were hooded. Well, when he showed those little alien mummies or whatever they were, I was like, is that what's under that cloak? That's kind of what could be under those cloaks that I saw. Like, is that the same thing? It looks like it could have been.
A baby, though? Didn't that get proved to be an actual human baby?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Or plastic. Something was up with that.
There was something about alien mummies, but I don't know if it had to do with Greer. But there was some kind of controversy about that. But I don't know enough about it. I don't really know, but I know he's all up in the government's butt with this disclosure stuff and all those meetings. Those are wild, like with all the generals and stuff. What is that? That's pretty crazy. He's definitely up in there for sure. No doubt about it. What is it called? Disclosure Project, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely ballsy, no doubt about it.
Yep.
I've watched some of it for sure. And auras. Why so much of an interest in auras? What else do you want to do with that? I mean, I understand why, but you want a camera. And what else have you thought about it with that kind of stuff, Samuel?
I think if we know the colors of our auras, we can actually use a lot of ways to improve our psyche or psychological health and physical health. For example, if we can match the colors of our auras to the colors that the clothes that we wear, I think it's going to improve our health in general. And actually, the book emphasizes the importance of colors because colors not only affect our psychological or mentalities, they also affect some of our other aspects of physiological aspects of our being. There's a study in which it's mentioned in the book. This is why I like the book so much, is that it has a lot of verifiable facts that we can validate and prove. Is that there's a study done by psychologists and scientists saying that if someone watches the color pink for 15 minutes, the person will lose the muscle strength by 30%. So this is actually a study mentioned in the book that I later found online. Is a clinical study, and actually a football coach in the University of Iowa knew about this. So he painted the locker rooms of his opponents or visiting teams into pink color, and he never lost a home game.
What coach did that?
A football coach in University of Iowa. He passed away already.
Oh, Iowa. Okay.
Yes, Iowa. Yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that because they never play an SEC schedule, but that has nothing to do with it. I bet they would have if they had it in a different conference. That's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
I've heard about that. The pink locker room before.
What about the funny rumor that when you die, the clothes you wear, you have to wear as a ghost forever? What you're wearing?
I think you can pick your own clothes.
I hope so. That would suck. There's some guy that says that, and he wears like these fancy aristocrat suits and stuff in case when he dies, that's what he'll wear forever. So he makes sure every day he wears something nice. That's crazy. But I have a Walmart shirt on from I forget what is it called, Fruit of the Loom right now. So that'd be my ghost shirt forever.
Me too. Check it out.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's the same.
We got
one.
the
Is that
same
purple?
damn shirt. We got the same. This is a Fruit of the Loom undershirt.
Dirty South representing.
These are the best. These are the best T-shirts on the planet.
It's cotton.
Just throw them on.
It's cotton, baby.
I should say that too.
Yeah, that's crazy. He's in Alabama. I'm in Florida.
So far away.
We didn't plan it. That's the funny part. But so is there anything else from the book you'd like to discuss that comes to mind, or have we covered everything? I doubt it. There's a lot.
There's a lot, like the history of the mankind, like where we all came from. The blacks and the yellows came from Baccaratini 1.35 million years ago. The Caucasians came later, and then the ancestors of the Polynesians came afterwards, about 200,000 years ago. And then I think the Jewish people came the latest, about 12,000 years ago, from a planet called Hebra. a Category 3 planet. So we are on Category 1 planet, and they came from Category 3 planet. So this is why they always encountered a lot of challenges and difficulties on Earth because of the uniqueness of their culture and also abilities and also spiritual developments. And the reason that they were the chosen people according to the Bible was that in the in the ancient past, under the Romans rule, people were not focusing on their spiritual development or spirituality, and the only people on earth at that period of time, during that period of time, were more on the right path for the Hebrews. So that's why they were the chosen people according to the Bible. They were chosen by the Thiaoubans to set example for the rest of the people in the world. So that's why they were chosen. So according to this book, it explains a lot of the stories and the reasons and rationale behind everything.
Did Michel bring back any souvenirs from that planet?
No, he didn't. They gave him like the aura clothes, the colorful clothes, the rope that he wore on the planet. And I tried to ask him like if he brought it back. No, he didn't. He left it there, and they didn't give him any medals or any souvenirs at all.
I would steal an ashtray or something. A coaster. I would steal something if that happened. It bugs me to no end. Or maybe like I always say when I talk to people who have a similar experience, like maybe that's all you. Once it happens, you don't really care what other people think. Maybe it's not as big a deal once you come back here a little old Category 1.
I mean, he asked for a medal or for some kind of object to prove that this really happened to him. But he was told there's no use because if they gave him like a medal that didn't exist on Earth, another like people here on Earth would still be doubtful and skeptical, saying that there must be some kind of clever alchemist that made the medal or something like that. So there's no use.
I think I would have risked it. Like, yeah, just give me a little. Just give it to me anyway.
When he's going through all this, is he completely physical like we are down here? Or is he in like other etheric realms? Because when you die, you can't take nothing with you. So when you're traveling through those realms, who knows what you can, take with you material. So there's probably
he's physical except for 3 hours.
Yeah,
he takes a pill. He takes a pill that makes him a ghost for 3 hours.
Yes.
Someone in the reviews on Amazon was saying there's a chapter that reveals all the shocking truth with proof of location and connects all the dots of the Bible. What are some of the parallels with that connect us with the Bible? Do you remember any of that?
Yeah, the distractions of the two cities, Sodom and Gomorrah. So what happened was that we tend, the Christians, we tend to think that it's because of sodomy that really caused the downfall of the people of the two cities. But really, if you really look at the Jewish original Hebrew text or the Hebrew Bible, the people in the two cities were so spiritually evil that they punished the people who helped the poor, the people who were compassionate. So they tortured the people who were compassionate. So that's why some people called out to the Thiaoubans or the Jehovah's and asked for help. So they couldn't find any single nice person in the two cities, and the two cities were distracted. And also there are other parts in which explains why Jesus, when he began preaching, didn't call his mother mother. He calls his mother woman. Because Jesus and Christ are two different beings, two different people. And it also explains why there's no record in the Bible about Jesus performing any miracles before the age of 30, and why there's a tomb of Jesus Christ in Japan. because Jesus couldn't perform miracles, went to India and died in Japan. And the Jesus that performed all the miracles was an ET being. So those are the dots that were connected. And also, it also talks about the Ethiopians leading Moses out of Egypt, and Moses really didn't wander in the desert for 40 years, but 3.5 years. That makes a lot of sense because it's hard to imagine someone leading a group of Hebrews wandering in the desert for 40 years because that's not very plausible. But 3.5 years is more likely. And it explains that they used a force field to part the Sea of Reeds, which is a shallow sea. That makes perfect sense. And I think people are interested can read the book, and also talks about God is God and Jehovah's are Theobans, and God is the creator of everything, and Jehovah's are actually the Theobans who appeared as angels to the ancient people.
I thought it was really interesting. They were eating the manna and the milk and honey like appetizers and chips and salsa. That was like that explains it. That was the funny. That book. It's a really good. It's a fun read. I mean I couldn't stop reading it, other than the fact that I was so tired. But like, it took me. I had to I had something else to do, so I had to wrap it up early.
Yeah.
But it's a really good one. I don't know why it's not more popular, to be honest, because maybe it's being sequestered.
It is kind of. I mean, it has. There's a lot of people in the blurbs that are pretty well known, so it definitely got some buzz in its day. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, that, and it's 40 years old, so
Yeah,
it's older than I am.
I've heard Jesus in India and stuff like that. I've had Paul Davids on. I think he wrote it had something to do with Jesus in India, about Jesus traveling to India and different places and stuff during the missing years. And I know there's some books about that, the missing years, lost years of Jesus.
There's a book called Lamb about him. It's a fictional book, but it's funny.
That's by Christopher Moore, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Samuel, so what are some of the parallels with Jesus? Is that the missing years that we're talking about here when he's visiting these other countries?
Yes. Even though Jesus was highly spiritual and highly intelligent, he couldn't perform miracles. He went to India and traveled to China and died in Japan. So that's the missing years of Jesus. Um, but, you know, because Christ is a different being, so people didn't know that there were actually two beings at the same time. So they tried to explain the missing years of Jesus, when in fact, Jesus was traveling and then was living in Japan at the time. And then during this period of time, Christ appeared in the desert. And then he traveled to the places where the Bible recorded that he began preaching. So that's what really happened. And that makes perfect sense to me. And I really echo to what Bobby said, why the book is not more it's not more popular. I'm trying to make the book more popular, and I really want to know what would be the best way to go about that besides talking about it in different shows. And
I mean, you can come on my show if you want to and talk about it.
yes, that'll be great.
I mean, I don't have your contact. I'm sure Jeffrey does, but
Yeah, I can give it to you.
we can deep dive and not have to be feel like an Amazon review to start, just set right into it. But did that book say that Jesus was still around, like on that planet,
Um,
or did he die?
his physical body was floating in the Golden Doko, so his physical body was still there on that planet.
It was in the dome thing.
Yeah, the dome,
Yeah.
the Golden Dome. Yes.
But his metaphysical body is still around.
Still
The
around.
light being.
But it's not mentioned anywhere in the book. I'm sure he's still around somewhere.
You think he's probably doing a book tour.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is he's supposed to come back, right? What do you think is it more of a coming back from within through everybody, or is it going to be like revelations in the sky and wormwood and blood seas? That's always scary. That's like Stephen King.
What if that's already happened?
No.
I mean, that's possible.
No,
Some of it,
no, Christ hasn't come back yet. No, I can assure you.
Chernobyl and stuff.
This is I want to, because Bobby read a book, so I can review a little bit more.
I didn't read it all. You can talk about it.
Okay, maybe after you finish
a lot
reading,
of it. I read a lot of it, but more to go.
Maybe after you finish reading the entire book, including the postscript, I'll share more information about it that makes more sense if you know the postscript.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to finish it, then talk about it, because I was like, man, I wish I could finish it before. I wasn't gonna miss supper or anything to finish it, but I was halfway, a little more than halfway through.
I'm gonna buy a physical copy. I've started some of the PDF and flipped through it and read some of it, but the physical copy, me and PDFs, I was just I work all day on a computer, so I have to have that book escape where you're holding.
They'll put you down if you're staring at that screen. Yeah,
I know. I'm on a computer so much it's bad. Like for my job, it's horrible, but the book's really great, and it definitely has a great message. And I'm someone that's seen weird stuff, so I know there's truth. I've seen enough weird paranormal and alien stuff that I know there's something to it. I'm still getting over it.
Yeah, it has a lot of suggestions and advice to us, including our political system and also how the world is run. It has some kind of connotations to secret societies. And I actually, I don't know why me, but I translated another book, supposedly written by the former highest degree chair of the Illuminati. It's very interesting.
What is that book? What are you getting into?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why me, but it happened to be
the Illuminati. They're not dangerous at all.
And I've had Leo Lugazami on about that. They definitely got crazy about the Illuminati and things like that. What's so weird is there's like a real creepy secret Illuminati. There's also some weird Illuminati. I don't know I don't know enough about it to judge, but it seems kind of culty, and they're always like messing with you on Facebook saying, you want to join the Illuminati? It's kind of weird, but there's so many weird things going on. I know one thing that's very fascinating lately with me is the Schumann resonance, the electromagnetic fields, pole shift, and then you throw in possible energy weapons that are manipulating us or something. There's just so much going on. Everything feels crazy. Like, how do you center yourself? One thing I say a lot is I am that I am. And Wayne Dyer, who is New York Times bestselling author, unfortunately he passed away, but he has this video on YouTube by James Tinneman and Wayne Dyer, but it's a frequency attuned to the I am that I am. It's very beautiful. It sounds kind of like Egyptian or something, but that is something that centers me, saying I'm in the now moment. I am that I am. Like, you really spiritually have to find ways to nourish and to battle what's going on right now. Everything feels crazy as hell to me. Like it's about to all go up in a Ragnarok apocalypse. From even the Schumann resonance was going off the charts. And, we've heard things from tribes and stuff saying that there's a pole shift going on, and we're feeling it all. It's a lot.
Yeah, and especially certain vibrational frequencies can break different bacteria and viruses. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Definitely.
I studied it, actually.
Yeah, and they're always messing with the Antarctica. Who knows what they dig up? They find weird stuff all the time that could be unleashed on us, like bacteria and stuff from dinosaur age or whatever that could affect all of us.
Valerie Hunt, a UCLA professor who passed away a few years ago. She says that the people who took cruises, who get on cruises and go to Antarctica, when they come back, their chronic diseases disappeared, because in Antarctica there's kind of a human frequency that can help to heal their chronic diseases. So I'm kind of looking forward to going to Antarctica to feel it.
Yeah, and there's some guy, a doctor, and I forget his name, but frequency in water and things like that.
The Japanese, yeah,
Yes, 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 yes. There's definitely something to it. I know a lot of those meditation videos on YouTube, they claim the frequency will do this and that. I think there's something to it, but you got to be careful what they're saying, as I don't know if some of it's all true, but I try to listen to that stuff to combat all this weirdness I just mentioned and discomfort. And it does help listening to that kind of music and things like meditation and things like that, for
yeah,
sure. And it raises your frequency. And but that "I Am That I Am" by Wayne Dyer, that's really good. It's on YouTube for free, and it's encoded to that. And that's the name, what God told Moses at the bush, right? I am that I am.
Yahweh.
Doesn't Pi say that? Is that
Yep. That's all that I am. I am that I am. It's all that I am.
Pi.
I'll tell you what, when you talk about that frequency, I noticed it when I went to, we went to the Wild Beach a few weeks ago, the Outer Banks. And I was at the ocean with no music and no phone for like 2 hours staring at it. And I came back like feeling like had like a software upgrade. Like my frequency had like just enough. It's like I charged my phone for like 20 minutes.
It's nature.
Where is that?
The Outer Banks, North Carolina. It was the beach. It's not like a party beach.
Okay.
There's deer on it and stuff and horses. It's pretty neat.
Speaking of that, I watch a lot of news in China. There's a news about a guy who became younger. He was like in his 60s, but then after he began doing certain things, his hair grew black, and his broken teeth, got new teeth. He got new teeth, and his health just regenerated. And the thing he did was that he slept over at a cave, once a week or so. So this is the only thing that he did differently from other people in the same village. So I guess there's some kind of frequency or vibrations in the cave that resulted in his rejuvenation of his body tissues.
Interesting. I saw some story about a guy that went down into like underwater in the ocean. I don't know if it was it wasn't a sub. It was like some kind of tank or something, but he stayed down there for a long time, and it rejuvenated him somehow. There was a whole article about it. Some scientist. But nature is definitely the answer. And to get to it, it's like in the fall here, it's cool. That's when I'm out in it more. But right now, it's so hot. Just going to the mailbox, which is actually a pretty too far of a walk compared to most people's mailboxes. But it's horrible out there. It's hard to even breathe out there. It's so hot. And then you get out even out there a minute, and there's already a mosquito getting you.
I left work today right before a storm line came up, and it felt like I was in an oven. There was no oxygen. There was no oxygen outside.
It feels terrible outside. It's like it's not even get radiation burns going out there or something. It's horrible. It's definitely very, very horrible right now, the weather and the sun. It seems like it's getting hotter. They're saying it's supposed to get hotter every year, right?
They say that. I don't believe that for a second. The current record's from 1913.
They say everything. They live.
Sensationalized.
I'm trying to think the first time I got introduced to alien stuff. I remember seeing E.T. at the drive-in with my dad. But one of the big shows was that V show where the reptilians came down and they were humans and said they needed water, but it turned out underneath their skin they were reptilians and they wanted to eat everybody. That was a show that was on NBC as a kid.
That was a good show.
Added the little action figures and stuff, and V for Victory. That was a weird show.
They remade it not too long ago.
Yeah, I didn't do too well, I don't think, but I think I saw
didn't work out.
I have the old ones, but I need to watch it again. But Robert Englund's in it, the guy that plays Freddy Krueger. Mm-hmm. But it's a creepy show. But you try to think when we were introduced to aliens and stuff as a kid, the first things that we see in entertainment and stuff like that. Do you remember
Alien Nation?
When were you first kind of introduced to aliens and sci-fi, Samuel? Did you see a movie or show? I mean, when you were a kid growing up?
Well, I wasn't really into science fiction films when I was growing up, even though I had a fascination about the paranormal. The sci-fi films are just too kind of too fanciful for me. I want something more kind of down to earth, more specific, more real. So that's why I didn't really go into a lot of sci-fi movies, including like Star Trek or Star Wars. I don't watch those movies at all.
Yeah. Well, we only have 5 minutes left. It's been great having you on the show. Do you have a website or anything you want to give out or a link?
Yes, people can find my website at chinasona.org. That's CHINASONA.org/Thiaoouba, THIAOOUBA, with the capital letter T. And they can also find me on Facebook by searching my name, Samuel Chong, CHONG.
All right. Well, we appreciate it so much. Thanks so much. It's been a great show, and we appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Thanks so much, Samuel.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. You're listening to United Public Radio, 107.7 FM, New Orleans. And I got to play some of these jingles and stuff before we close out. I'm the jingle man.
You're a sellout.
Jingle Baggins.
Jingle all the way. My favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie.
There's podcast awards, a jingle, an ad, and all that stuff.
Jingle all the way.
Jingle all the way. That's right. And next week's Jeffrey Shakes and weird archaeology, and he's been into some UFO stuff, so we'll talk about that. Jay will be here. So thanks everybody for listening. Thanks, Bobby. And I'm tired. I keep wanting to just sleep.
It's the aliens.
Need some chicken.
Fight them. I think I'm about to go get something to eat, and I've eaten 4 meals today. I'm hungry again.
Is this really the same shirt?
It's a Fruit of the Loom.
Come up a little closer. Is it got like a? Yours seems a little darker. Like mine's kind of got like a white purple to it. Same Fruit of the Loom, but not exact. Yeah. Yours kind of shiny.
It's really weird. Yeah, you got like a sports shirt.
Yeah,
mine's just cotton.
Like cotton. Mine's cotton too, but it's kind of a. I see little white fragments all over, like static.
You got like the sweatsuit looking.
The Thubias gave you that. Yours is glimmering.
Yeah. I swear to God, I would have taken something. If I get abducted by aliens, I'm taking something. I'm stealing the Gideon Bible from the UFO. Write it down.
Well, penis they have penises and vagina. What about a threesome?
What about like the alien tampon? It's got like dual purpose.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I gotta play freaking things. Everybody have a good weekend. Good night, everybody. Take care, man.
You are listening to UPRN, United Public Radio Network, coming to you live on 105.3 right up to 107.7 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. UPRNTalkRadio.com.
Looking for stories that are fresh and new? Dark fantasy, humor, space exploration, time travel, cyberpunk, alternate history, and more. They're in the L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future anthology. From 24 award-winning authors and illustrators, plus art and writing tips and bonus stories. L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future. Buy your copy at galaxypress.com, Amazon, or wherever books are sold.
It's time for you to get out and nominate your favorite podcasts. There's an amazing show I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards. Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast. In 3 categories: education, storyteller drama, and art. For 4 years, the Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast has provided advice and tips from international best-selling authors, world-class artists, contest judges and winners, and industry professionals based on the world-famous Writers of the Future contest created in 1983 by L. Ron Hubbard to help the aspiring writer and artist no matter their age. It is dedicated to the future of storytelling and art by showing that it is never too late to start, and those who make it are those who never give up. Go to podcastawards.com to nominate the Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast in any or all of the 3 categories: education, storyteller drama, and art. That's podcastawards.com, and please take a moment and go out and vote now.